Okay, now we're going to talk about using high definition or high DPI displays like the retina display. I have a retina display that's 4096 pixels across. Uh, when you do the regular Ubuntu image, you get fairly good results, and you can use the Command F on a Macintosh to go full screen. What it does is scale every pixel in the Ubuntu image up to use 4 pixels on the retina display. So to get them to use 1:1, first we're going to have to close down Ubuntu. So I'll power it off. And then we're going to change some settings. So make sure your image is selected. Go to Settings. And then go to the Display. And we want to turn on this one right here. It says Use Unscaled HiDPI Output. So this will map 1:1 from pixel in Ubuntu to a pixel in the machine you're on, the display you're on. Now I also recommend increasing to the display memory, and you can go, or it won't go close to full screen without problems. You can go to 32. I like to go to 64 megabytes. It's not a lot of memory you're using, so it doesn't hurt to go up there. So go ahead and hit OK. Power Ubuntu back on. First thing you'll notice, it has a very small window. Okay, so now it's running. Now the first thing you can do, and you'll have to do, because we're going to go to the display settings, but before we do that, the option we're looking for will not show up with this small window. So go down to this button, which is part of the VirtualBox display control. Click on it and go to virtual screen and choose the largest virtual screen. Okay, and you'll notice everything's really small, so we want to increase this. So this is where we're going to scale and have everything that Ubuntu normally displays magnify it a bit. So we're going to double the magnification, but it's going to take advantage of all the pixels, so you'll have very smooth font just like on a retina display. So go here to show applications. We can either search for settings. I've been using it, so I'm just going to double click on settings. You have to go down to devices, and then you have to go to displays. And once you've made your window bigger, this option appears. It doesn't appear when you have too small a window. And you'll notice it has 100% and 200%. We're going to go to 200%. We're going to hit apply. We're going to say keep changes. Now to lock this in, it's a problem because if we change the size of the display, I'm going to drag the window to change the size to a bigger window. You'll notice it flips back down to 100%. So what you want to do is size the window the way you want to work on your machine, but do not make it maximum. There's a bug somewhere in the underlying Ubuntu Linux system that if you go to maximum display to 4096, you get a very unusual problem, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so that's going to use almost full screen. I'm going to hit 200%, apply, and then keep changes. Now at this point, everything's bigger. There's a way you can scale down the fonts, which we'll show you in a minute. You have to install a separate app called GNOME Tweak, and then you scale down the fonts to maybe 80% to get more on the screen. But to save things right now, what we want to do is not change the size of the display again. So once you've gotten the size you want and you've gone to 200%, you want to power off. Now at this point, I recommend creating a snapshot. So this also shows you how to do that. So you can only do this powered off. It saves the current state, so you can go back to that state at any time. So you can always add more snapshots as you add applications and things. But I'm going to snapshot our initial Ubuntu creation. So go to snapshot, go to take a snapshot, after install, and HiDPI adjustment. Hit OK. It'll take a little time. Okay, so now What we're going to do is power it back on, and I'll show you a couple things. And that's it. If you just want to do the high DPI, keep your window the same size. It'll go back to that size as soon as it starts up. But we're going to show you what happens when you go to full screen. Oh, and we're going to show you how to tweak the fonts. Okay, we're back up. Make a note, if everything's too small, it forgot your display settings, so you may have to set them again. Eventually it takes and remembers when you restart. One thing that we'll make sure you want to do is close the settings window before you power off, and it should save it. Okay, what we're going to do is install a new app. So I'm going to go into this, which is our Ubuntu software, and we're going to search for a thing called Tweaks. Hit the little magnifying glass, and then we'll just type in Tweaks. Hit enter. And we're looking for GNOME Tweaks. So you want to select that, install it, put in our password. Now this is optional. It's only if you find the fonts are too big when you've doubled for your retina display. So what I like to do is have a little smaller font. So go ahead and launch that. Close GNOME Tweaks. And then here it is. We're in Tweaks. Go to where it says Fonts and scale this down. So I'm going to set it to 0.75 and then go ahead and close this. And that'll make everything a little smaller. Now one more thing I wanted to show you is what happens when you go to full display. So if you do Command F, there's a bug when you're using high DPI setting, and it tries to make your display exactly 4096, and when you hit that number you get an interesting bug. What happens is it reports to somewhere in Linux, it sets your width of your display to 1024 instead of 4096. So it works, you just have a very narrow window. And eventually they're going to fix this, I assume, in a later version of Ubuntu or VirtualBox. I'm not sure where the problem is. So I'm going to go ahead and do Command F again, which will switch back to where we were. And that's it. Hopefully you'll enjoy using the high-res display. Thank you.